Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a review of actually the very first review of a fragrance from this brand on my channel, and I can already feel the eye roll across the room for my regulars who watch me. This is the very first review of a Mancera fragrance on my channel, and this is called Intensitive Oud. Now, immediate beef. So for those of you who like negative reviews, stick around. So first of all, you can see I have to say thank you, Dore, or damn you, Dore, whichever you prefer, for sending me this sample, because otherwise I never would get to do a video like this. And some people really dig these type of reviews, because the reality is, if you go search for this review on YouTube, there's dozens of people gushing over this fragrance. Positive, can't get enough, best oud in the game, question mark? Well, hell no. But let's talk a little bit about, first of all, the name. So this came out in 2008, and as you can see, and actually until just now, all the way through the whole video, I was thinking that it is, well, I haven't made the video yet, but while I was sort of taking notes and researching the perfume, this is the first time I've worn it as my scent of the day, but I've had this sitting up here with my decants for over a year, it feels like. Dore sent this to me forever ago. And so I've worn it to bed a couple times over the years, not recently, but periodically. And so this is the first time I've given it a full wear. So you can see I put a little bit of a dent. I think these are 5 mil decants, so I've worn 2 or 3 mils. And so the name is actually not Intensive Oud, as he wrote. It's actually Intensitive Oud. I'm not shitting you. It is Intensitive Oud, which sounds like somebody who doesn't know the English language named this. And so Intensitive Oud, that's the first thing. The second thing is that I've talked about Montale and Mancera on the channel whenever I do like lists. This is not a top 10 this year in perfume. You know, I've shown some of the decants, and there will be some more of these reviews coming. So if you're a fan of the House of Mancera or Montale, or if you're a fan of these type of videos, there will be more to come. For example, I've got Mancera Red Tobacco that we're going to talk about one day soon. I have Sahara Noir. Sorry. That's Hindu Kush. And then I have Saharian Wind. Saharian Wind. So that's on the Mancera side. And then on the Montale side, probably my favorite of all of the releases from the house I've smelled is this. This is Oud Cuir d'Areej. And you guys know I'm a leather lover. So Cuir, you know, oud and leather, it's going to be my take. But still, I think the brand is just kind of a shite house overall in my personal opinion. There was some talk on the person himself, who I always thought his name was Pierre Montale, okay? And there's a book that I've talked about on the channel many a times called The Ghost Perfumer. I was wondering if it was around here somewhere. No. Somebody moved it. Probably so that somebody was me. But there is a book I've discussed on the channel many times called The Ghost Perfumer. And it's technically, here it is. It's about Aventus. And inside of this book, they talk about some of the people in the perfume industry. Roja Dove gets mentioned. There's a hilarious quote by Sylvain Delacourt about Roja Dove in here. There is a page or two about Pierre Montale. Pierre Montale, that's not his name. His name has been changed multiple times, and one of the reasons it was changed, according to that book, is that he was actually sued for copyright violation. He created a fragrance earlier on, I think under a different name, is my understanding of the story. And, you know, it is extremely hard to prove you're copying a fragrance. Think about all the clones and stuff like that. In French law, in order to sue someone for copyright violation of a fragrance, you have to prove that they almost identically copied it. All you have to do is change like one thing, and they can get away with saying it's not a copyright violation. So he obviously took heart of that, but he was one of the few people who actually got sued under that law. I don't know if it was a successful lawsuit or not, but one company sued him for that. And he changed his name. And it's funny because if you go click on the brand Mancera on Parfumo, there's a little blurb. And it says the fragrance brand Mancera was created in 2008 and named after its founder and perfumer, Pierre Mancera. I thought his name was Pierre Montale. And then, to make it even funnier, it says Mancera worked for many years as a fragrance developer in the Middle East, and during this time created a wide variety of fragrances with an oriental touch from hand-picked essences. Because some of his customers, including Pierre Montale, it's like he's trying to say he's two different people. We're very fond of the fragrances. He's like, yes, Pierre Montale here, very fond of this. Oh, yes, Pierre Mancera here. Thank you, Pierre Montale. Would you like to buy some of my fragrances? They suggested to Mancera to create his brand following smashing levels of success. And that is true, I will tell you that. As far as smashing levels of success goes, the amount of fragrances they have created is mind-blowing, astronomical. You could probably spend an entire year. Like, if you reviewed one fragrance a day, like I tend to do, you could spend an entire year on the house of Mancera or Montale, which actually makes me sick to my stomach. But according to this statement, Pierre Mancera wanted to merge his preference for floral and oriental fragrances with his Art Deco passion. The special thing about Mancera is the symbiosis of southern aromas with western influences. The women's fragrances of the brand often range from citrus wood and vanilla to musk leather and wild cherry. The men's fragrances are dominated by aromas such as amber, spice, musk, sandalwood, and bergamot. In terms of flacons, Mancera relies on a fusion of recognition and individuality. Yes, individuality, all in the exact same bottle. They look like this. This is the only Mancera I own. One day I'm going to sell this fragrance for $250 because it has the vintage. It's not the magnetic cap anymore. This is the vintage screw cap edition. So if anyone wants to get screwed and pay $250 for Cedrat Boisé, let me know. I'll sell it to you. And it says that he's created a visual link to the aromas with the names and the labels and the stripes on the bottle. Wow, what artistry. So let's talk a little bit about this fragrance, which we're going to talk about today. Mancera Intensitive Oud. So to give him credit, I guess he was the first one to do the, it's actually not spelled oud, it's A-O-U-D, and it's not intensive, it's Intensitive Oud, okay? And also, to make things even more confusing, is that there are 3 versions of this. There's a gold version, which I'm pretty sure this is. There's a silver version, and there's a black version. So there's Intensitive Oud Gold, Intensitive Oud Silver, and Intensitive Oud Black. So it's like, could you try to make it any more confusing? Okay, so I've been on a little bit of an oud kick lately, and I use those parentheses purposely. Yesterday, I reviewed Montale by the House of Dusita, which I think if you're going to, you know, spend this kind of money on a oud fragrance, then go buy Montale, in my opinion. But I would urge you, I'd urge you to buy Montale over this, okay? But this is Pierre Montale's take on an oud, okay? This is one of his early releases in 2008 and one of the best sellers from the brand, apparently. So, to give him credit, he did do the oud thing, the A-O-U-D, before Roja did it. Roja kind of took it and ran with it, if you will. But this fragrance opens up smelling like an oud fragrance from 15 years ago, which is exactly what it is. But it smells like every oud fragrance you've smelled. Just take them all, combine them, and that's kind of what you get. And I've said that before about some of these westernized oud fragrances, but this is kind of how it feels to me. It feels very, very heavy on the musks, okay? So the musks in here, to me, that's what my nose focuses on in the beginning. It's a musk rose saffron combo with that, you know, western oud oil that is probably created by IFF or Givaudan or one of those, you know, big oil houses that they just sell it by the bucket load, you know? And so instantly when I smelled this, there is a rose oud fragrance that I have in my collection that came out 1 year after this in 2009 from the House of Bond No. 9, another house which I am not that fond of. For a myriad of reasons we won't talk about on this video, but I do own a couple of their perfumes, so one of these days I'll get around to reviewing them, but this is called Bond No. 9 on Parfumo, it just says bond number 9, bond number 9. But on my bottle, it says, I believe it's called Signature, if I'm not mistaken. Bond number 9 Signature. And it came out in 2009, and you can see I put a pretty decent-sized dent in this bottle. And what's interesting is, if you try to buy this bottle right now, they sell it as an eau de parfum, okay? And actually, if you go to Parfumo and look this up, it lists it as an eau de parfum. But the older bottles of this are actually a pure parfum. So if you look on the bottom of my bottle, it says, if it'll focus, it says parfum. Not eau de parfum. This is 100 mils of pure parfum. And the smell is very, very similar. It's a rose musk, tonka bean, and oud fragrance. And that is sort of how Mancera's Gold Intensitive Oud smells to me. It smells very similar to this. Now, this came out 1 year after, but it's always interesting to me when you compare fragrances that are built around the same year, how either it's trends or oils that the houses that are popular with the oil houses that are being sold to the perfumers, you know, and how sometimes fragrances made around the same time have these links in my head. So this is very heavy on the white musks, and you know, this very, very similar in my opinion. Bond number 9 Signature, if you will. And so to me, this very heavy musk execution of rose oud in white musks has been done a million times over, okay? This is really kind of a played out category. However, I must admit, since my whole point of this channel is to be honest with you guys, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to do affiliate links. I actually was offered an affiliate link with a pretty well-known brand. I turned them down. Said, I'm not going to have an affiliate link on the channel. Could you imagine having an affiliate link on the channel and then bashing a fragrance and then putting a link saying, here, please buy this, here's your discount code? It just doesn't work when you're trying to be honest, you know? So if you've smelled westernized ouds, and I actually have an entire video I did on Western ouds, and I've reviewed many Western ouds on the channel. Alberto Morillas's brand Mancera came out with a fragrance called Perfect Oud, which he claims to have used no oud in, or no oud essences. But if you want to go watch some of my videos on some of those westernized ouds, you can. I also did them in a list, so I ranked my top real oud fragrances, and I say real because I mean they're actually using real agar wood in the composition, like Areej Le Dore's or Bortnikoff's or these type of brands, right? And then I did a Western style oud. Now, just because it's a Western style oud doesn't mean that there's not oud in here. They could place a drop or two of oud just for the GCMS machine, a la Fragrance du Bois, and, you know, claim that there technically is oud in here, and there technically is if they put a drop 0.000000001%, and then they can sue somebody who says there's no oud in here. But many of the westernized ouds don't smell like you're smelling an Ensar, you know, or a Rising Phoenix fragrance. It's not fair to compare the two. They're totally different blends. I don't even think they should be able to call something like this oud. I think they should have their own name for it, in my opinion. But the industry can be kind of shady on some of this stuff. That's why for newbies, you have to really be careful. And I hope to educate and, you know, give you guys some starting points to go off of. But there's nothing wrong with the westernized oud style. The problem is many of these fragrances sell for extremely bloated prices just because of the name oud, right? So this retail right here, 100 and I think it's 120 mil that Mancera does. I think they give you an extra 20 mils. How big are you? Oh yeah, here it is, right there on the front. I was looking on the bottom. 120 mils. So they do 120 mils because the juice is so rare. They have no problem just throwing 20 mils extra in there. And they do 120 mils of this for $180 on the website, which is actually pretty expensive for this scent profile. The Perfect Oud I was talking about earlier by Mancera, I think was 100 mils for $210. That kind of pricing is a lot for this style of fragrance composition to me. And so, like I said, if you go check out many of the, if you just go search Mancera's Gold Intensitive Oud, one of the most ridiculous names of all time. You'll just see mounds and mounds of YouTubers out there saying that this is just absolutely amazing, the best oud in the game, they're addicted to it, they just can't get enough, it's just one of the most, and of course they always talk about sillage and projection, oh, it just projects, I get so many compliments off of this, you know, women just throw themselves at me, and, you know, I think this is actually a really good litmus test to test the YouTubers that you're watching. If your YouTubers that you're watching are out there going, Mancera's Intensitive Oud Gold is one of the greatest oud perfumes in the game, I think it might be time to unsubscribe to that channel. Call me a hater if you want, but I don't want to watch somebody who is not knowledgeable enough to know that this is not one of the greatest ouds in the game, in my opinion. And so that's a good litmus test. If they're talking about this being the best oud in the game, how natural it smells, oh, the oud is so animalic, it's like barnyard, fecal, time to unsubscribe, in my opinion. But I have said this before, and I'll say it again, it's really one of the only ways I know how to describe these Western oud fragrances. But to me, it smells like every other Western oud fragrance combined. And you just combine them all into one, and you get this, is basically how I would describe it. It really smells like something you've smelled a million times before. It smells generic, boring, fake, in my opinion. It smells very fake. It smells derivative. It smells, you know, it smells to me like a $20 fragrance, honestly. Like, fair pricing to me, 20 to 30 bucks for 120 mils is what I would pay for this. Actually, I wouldn't pay for that because even if you gave this to me for free, I probably wouldn't want to put it in the rotation because to me, every single day you wear something, you know, life's only so long, okay? I'm in my 30s, but honestly, life is only so long. The years go by quick. You only have so many days, and if you wear fragrances according to season as well, then you have even less time to wear your fragrances because you're limited to, okay, I only wear this one in the spring or summer or winter or fall or whatever it is. And so, you know, you only have a limited amount of time you can wear each fragrance. Do you want to waste a day wearing something that you don't love? That's the biggest question. And for me, the answer is no. I mean, and for those of you out there who are expecting real oud in this, you're either a newbie or I think you're deluded. Because, you know, if there is any real oud in here, and I would be absolutely dumbfounded if Mancera is putting real oud in there, but since this is a YouTube video and I'm no expert, I'm just a perfume lover, you know, I would be shocked if they used real oud, even if they did the 0.00001, so they could just say for the GCMS machine that there is real oud in here. I would be shocked. I wouldn't think so. But maybe there is. If they say there is, there is. So outside of that whole problem with his name, one of my biggest kind of beefs with the house of Mancera and Montale that I never really understood, and I think I understand the strategy from his point of view trying to sell bottles, okay? But one thing that always bothered me is, like, when I read that brief on Mancera earlier, it said that Montale is supposed to be kind of the Middle Eastern brand, if you will. Mancera is supposed to be the French-style perfumery, and from the way I understood it, it's supposed to be this, you know, French, you know, think Guerlain, Dore, Christian Dior, that kind of thing, Yves Saint Laurent. That style of perfumery is what Mancera is supposed to be trying to do, and Montale is supposed to be doing the Middle Eastern style, the rose ouds. And to confuse matters, they're doing stuff like rose oud fragrances in a Mancera bottle, and then there's a Montale fragrance that smells very similar to this. So if you ever smelled Montale Wild Oud from 2009, 1 year after Intensitive Oud, apparently they smell very, very close to each other. And so it's just a very confusing strategy that the brand has, in my opinion. I think his strategy from selling bottles, and it's a brilliant strategy in my opinion, is he's kind of taking advantage of these folks with a shopping addiction. He's putting out fragrance after fragrance after fragrance. There's like, honestly, if you go look at the just the amount of perfumes, there's like 100 Mancera fragrances. Let that sink in. There's like 100 Mancera fragrances that they've created since 2008, give or take. That's not an exact number. Maybe there's a little bit less, but around 100, okay? If you look at Montale, it's even worse. There's like 160 Montale fragrances that have come out since that brand was created. I think it was created the same year. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but 160 Montale fragrances. So I always get a good chuckle out of the folks who, you know, are like, I have 20 bottles of Mancera and 20 bottles of Montale. And hell, sometimes I buy the Montales because I like to buy the different colors. I love how the purple blends with the black in this can. And then they're like, oh, I would never spend $350 on a Bortnikoff. I'd never spend $400 on an Areej Dore. But you just spent thousands on a Mancera or Montale product, and you've got like 20 of them, 50 of them. In my opinion, I would rather have one good oud fragrance than 20 or 40 mediocre perfumes, in my opinion. After being in this game for as long as I have been and smelling as many fragrances as I have, you know, you're spending thousands on stuff like this. I would rather spend a little bit more on something that's quality, in my opinion. Now, let me take a step back real quick, because keep in mind, everything that I'm saying depends on where you are in your journey, okay? So how far your understanding of fragrances goes, you know, where do you fall? How long have you been smelling fragrances? Because I am of the belief, my personal belief is that the nose literally changes. The way you smell, the way the brain interprets smells over the years, the more you smell, it changes what you're perceiving to smell. So if you smell a fragrance today, put it away for a year, come back, which I did this recently with a fragrance by the house of Areej Dore called Oud Picante. You can go check out my review of that. Almost no one watched that review. There's like 200 views on it. And Oud Picante, it's impossible to find a bottle. And if you do, it'll be, God knows how much, $1,000 maybe. But I got some juice from Russian Atom, a couple of precious drops, and I did a review of it. And I remember saying, man, the spices are way too much for me. Like, I can't take this. It's too much spice, too animalic in the opening, too this, too that. Wasn't for me. And then I smelled it again this week, and I was like, wow, I love this. Yes, it's intense. Not intensitive, but it was intense. And but I was like, I love it. And I really feel like as your nose matures, as you smell more and more stuff, literally the way you perceive smell changes, in my opinion. So to someone new to the hobby, to jump straight into Areej Dore Russian Oud, I don't want to say it's going to be a waste, but I will say I don't think you would appreciate the nuances that make these type of oud fragrances so special, so great. And so if you're watching this and you are a newbie, I think it is important that you sample. You should smell stuff like this, because to me, every time you smell something, it goes into the perfume Rolodex in my mind, okay? So you start to kind of see connections. I did many fragrance videos, which I'm very proud of, called Perfume Connections or Fragrance Connections, where, you know, we talk about fragrances that share some similarity to my nose at the time. And, you know, you start to build those connections. You start to understand trends, and you start to understand when you smell a fragrance from the 80s, you're smelling something that is indicative of its time. You're smelling something that was designed for a specific time and place and market. And so the human nose and how we smell, or how our brain interprets smell, hasn't changed for hundreds of thousands of years. So this whole, that thing's out of date, I could never wear that, that's a fragrance from 30 years ago, is absolutely crazy. I mean, if it smelled great 30 years ago, I promise it smells good now. It's just the way, style. You know, it's like seeing somebody wearing pants that flood, or high water pants, we used to call them in high school. He's flooding. And all of a sudden, it's funny, over the last decade, you start to see these kids and they think that's cool now. It's cool to wear a tight pant. Now it's going back to baggy again. So it's just like style, you know, how everything kind of comes and goes and flows. That's how fragrance smell is to me as well. It's more what's popular at the time. But if you smell a lot of stuff, you start to make these sort of connections, if you will, in your brain. And so to me, if you want the Cliff Notes version of Mancera's Gold Intensitive Oud, I think it's a derivative, boring oud that is been done a million times. And, you know, I think that it's a rose oud, saffron, spicy, floral, whatever you want to call it. But honestly, I don't think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. I just think that this perfume is perfume of the absolute lowest common denominator. I really feel like, you know how everything feels like it's getting dumbed down nowadays in society? Kid can't pass the math test, fuck it. Just graduate them anyways, you know what I mean? We don't want to mess with the kid anymore. And that's kind of what it feels like nowadays. It feels like nobody is qualified to do this job or that job, but they give it to them anyway, because fuck it, why not? And so this really feels like this is fragrance for the lowest common denominator. This is kind of one of these fragrances that bashes you against the head. This is like a sledgehammer. It really does last forever, and that kind of forever lasting is a lot of modern aroma chemicals and stuff like that is what you're smelling. Now, the other problem that this has, as if I'm saying that there's not enough, because there's a lot of problems that Mancera has, in my opinion. But to me, as a consumer of perfume, the other problem that Mancera has, to me, is even at discounters. So right now, if you search for Mancera Gold Intensitive Oud, you'll find that they're at discounters anywhere from $55 to $100, $125. There's some places trying to sell for like $125 because they say, oh, $180, marked down to $125. But really, if you look, you can get it for like $55, okay? And even that's kind of, I don't know. But the other problem is price. Because to me, if I'm kind of one of those newbies I was talking about earlier, and I want to use these type of fragrances as stepping stones to get to the next level of oud, I would much rather go with something like this. This is Ajmal. This is 1001 Nights. And this is actually a gift that Russian Adam gave to me. And I'm very thankful. I mean, just the honor of having someone like Russian Adam send you a gift like this is a big honor. It was like a Christmas present. He said he got it for a great deal. He's like, dude, you deserve this fragrance. And I'm going to review it one of these days. The other one is this. This is Ajmal's Mukhallat al-Shams. Absolutely fantastic. I got this for 30 bucks. To me, I enjoy wearing this just as much as I enjoy wearing the Night. I have a decant of the Night. I'll review the Night one of these days as well. But honestly, I enjoy this just as much as the Night. That's a $1,000 perfume. I got this for 30 bucks. Now, at discounters, you may have to pay 60, 80, 90, whatever. But if you're comparing these head to head, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely no-brainer to me. Ajmal, they have their own oud processing center and distillation center and all that stuff. And so even though it's a cheaper priced oud, on the quality scale, to me, this is head and shoulders, right? This, if you're doing stepping stones, you step right on Pierre Mancera or Pierre Montal's head, whatever you want to call it, to get to the next rung here. And then you can step on Ajmal and jump up to the next rung, the Bortnikoffs, the Areej Dores. But honestly, this is a fantastic oud creation. Like, if you want oud in the Middle East style, Mukhallat al-Shams is, I mean, it's up there. It's up there, honestly. It's a great creation. And a similar price of something like this. This very, I don't know if it's Givaudan or IFF, but whatever they call it, black oud, this sort of, you know, oud oil is so precious. Some of them sell in these little tiny little Tola bottles, 3 grams, 6 grams, 10 grams, whatever it is. And I just imagine the stuff that Givaudan sells, the oud note that's in this, by the barrel, almost like an oil barrel is how I think of it. I just imagine them just carrying this oil barrel of stuff in there, plopping it down. They're like, this was $800 for, 100 gallons. But anyways, so to me, this is just, it's a $20 perfume. The reality is I struggle to sort of describe the generic oud smell that's in Mancera's Gold Intensitive Oud, because it's like this weird blend between sweet and sour, okay? So it's like sweet and sour accord. There is an ambergris note that's listed on the Parfumo website. If you go to Parfumo and look this fragrance up, it'll say ambergris in the base. Just like I was saying earlier, I doubt there's any real oud. I doubt at this price point that Mancera is using real ambergris. It's probably some sort of an ambergris, you know, substitute, if you will. And because all they have to do to list a note is say they smell it. Hey, we smell an ambergris note in here. There's ambergris. This is the way that it works. Many people think if it's in the note listing, it has to be there. Not necessarily. Like I said, it can be a dirty game. You have to be careful. You don't want to get taken for a fool. And I think Pierre Mancera, whatever his real name was before he changed it, I think he's taken many people for a fool. And so when you look at the Mancera Parfums website, it actually shows amber. It doesn't show ambergris. So, you know, I never would smell this and think, oh, ambergris. No, absolutely not. There is a little bit of an ambery-like accord in here, but like I said, I doubt at this price point it's ambergris. It's probably some sort of ambroxan feeling, because this fragrance does have that ambroxan-like throw. I mean, it's big. It's a sledgehammer. This thing nails you against the head. This is, it's funny because here, let me read you the blurb from Mancera. So Mancera's blurb, and it's one sentence. They put a lot of work into this. Rose and oud combined in a spicy dance, leaving a cool and delicate sillage. Well, first of all, delicate, like I said, this is a sledgehammer to the head. It is definitely not delicate in my opinion. And it's funny, delicate sillage. But this is for people who need to be bashed against the head to smell it, right? It's like, bam, oh, I think I smell some rose in here. Bam, oh, I think I smell some musk. You know, and it's just banging you against the head with musk and rose and this oud smell. And so each note is like screaming to be noticed. And then basically what it dries down to, I've got about a 5-hour, 6-hour dry down here. It dries down to this kind of generic woody smell that you've smelled hundreds, thousands of times over. You know, it's millions of times. Is it shite? Ooh, is it shite? Well, you know, one thing you should know about me is that I actually like rose ouds. I said it yesterday when I reviewed Montale. I'm a big fan of rose oud. I'm a big fan of Middle Eastern perfume in general. Problem is, I really feel like I found the mountaintop of Middle Eastern perfumery. So I showed this off yesterday in the video too. This is Oud Monarch. I'm going to review this very soon. But Oud Monarch is a chocolatey oud. But there's a brilliant floral top. And so these type of florals with oud, sometimes they can be chocolatey, sometimes they can be smoky, you know, sometimes they, I mean, you can mix them with all kind of stuff. I love animalic notes with oud, like castoreum and stuff like that. And so for my taste, I don't hate this fragrance, okay? I just understand where it sits in the pecking order of ouds. You know, it's on the first floor, if not the basement. You could just step right past this and go to something better, like I was saying earlier. You could just step right past this at this price point. And honestly, if I really wanted to wear something that gave me this kind of vibe, I could just wear Santal Royale, which I really am not a fan of. But I will try to review this one day. Eugene says he's come around to this. I still haven't come around to this. And apparently, I heard this is Thierry Wasser's most favorite creation. Like, he was most proud of creating this, which is crazy to me because it's maybe my most hated from this line that I've smelled. You know, the Absolutes d'Orient or whatever the hell they call this line. I always forget, but yes, I mean, so for me, you know, if you absolutely like pointed a gun to my head and said, Ramsey, you're wearing a Mancera or a Montale today, I'd probably have to pick this. This is my favorite I've come across so far. I'll review this before my little decant is gone. You can see there's a dent in that little decant. Someone sent this to me, whoever you are. Thank you. I forgot who sent that to me. So I'll review that one of these days. But, I mean, for me, it's not like I'm offended at Intensitive Oud Gold because it's exactly what I expected. I mean, exactly, 100%. Like if you said, Ramsey, create this fragrance and make it to be what you think Pierre Mancera or Pierre Montale is going to make this smell like, I would have created this. This is exactly what I would have expected him to come up with. So, according to him, there's fresh lemon of Calabria in the top, with rose petals, geranium, saffron powder, and woody notes. The dreaded woody notes. And with amber and white musks in the base. And so, again, for me, that white musk really comes forward. There's that sweet and sour kind of oud feel that I have a tough time to describe. I'd rather wear Tom Ford's Oud Wood, even though that's like Tom Ford's, you know, cardamom. That's a huge cardamom bomb to me, and rosewood. I enjoy it. I like that a lot more. But there's a lot of these sort of, you know, oud fragrances that are floating around out there that we'll talk about on the channel. But honestly, it depends where you are in your journey. Because once you get to this point, the problem is once you get to this point, it's like if you've driven a Porsche 911 for the last 20 years, and then all of a sudden you have to go back and drive a Hyundai Elantra. I mean, the Elantra is not a bad car. Do they even make that car anymore? I guess I should have picked something else. Sonata. It's not a bad car, but it is not a Porsche 911, right? And so that is kind of that's sort of the difference in what I'm saying. And I just think that many people kind of get suckered. They get suckered in by brands like Mancera because they're like, I'm wearing a niche brand. But really, it's like, dude, you should have just went and bought a Chanel or something. Or even a Dior. Even some of the Dior Privé ouds I enjoy more than this. Leather oud or something like that I enjoy more. So anyways, enough blubbering about oud. That's sort of my take. I just think the whole brand of Mancera and Montale, they're just not for me. I just don't think that it's a brand for me. And it's funny because you go search for some of this stuff and some of those, like, you know, Max Forte has one of these Mancera, you know, highlight videos that has like 500,000 views. And it's like, what? It's absolutely crazy how many people are interested in this house. There's a lot of people interested in it. And, you know, it really feels like a stepping stone house for me. It feels like kind of a lot of the newbies get in, they, you know, they maybe buy some of these early on, and then they move on, and that's it. They're not going back to Mancera or Montale. But early on, you know, they're thinking, I'm buying niche. But yeah, it's just not, it's not a brand for me necessarily. So, okay, I've blubbered on about this for almost 38 minutes. So if you have experience with Mancera's Intensitive Oud Gold, sorry for the misspelling there. Thank you, Daver, for this, by the way. I'm sure this is a fun video. I'm sure this will get some, you know, feedback. There's some people who will probably call me a snob, but that's okay. I don't mind. And there are other people who will laugh right along with me at the House of Mancera, and we are laughing at them, not with them. You know, so let me know what you think. Let me know where you fall. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm all for respectable disagreements. But if you come in here and be like, dude, you're cringe, I'm just going to block your ass. Like, you know, I'm not putting up with that stuff anymore. I've learned over the years, there's just no point. I'm not gonna put up with stuff like that. But if you have a respectful disagreement, absolutely no problem with that at all. So anyways, love you guys. Thanks for watching. Do leave a comment. I love the back and forth in the comments. I'm going to try to live stream tonight. We'll see. It's kind of cloudy, rainy. It's the first cold day here in Texas. It's October 29th, and we finally get a cold day. It's in the 40s today. Tonight's going to get down to right about freezing, so I'm so happy. It's like I've waited. It's like I've survived 8 months of Texas summer, you know what I mean? And it's like I'm at that point where I'm like, oh, I've made it. It's no longer 100 degrees every day. Praise the Lord. So, anyways, appreciate everyone's support. Thanks for watching. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.